Lynn from Combrio Coaching, and I'm here to talk about fighting fair. And I have to give you all my normal legal mumbo jumbo. I'm not a counselor, I'm not a doctor, I'm a coach. And the best thing about being a coach is that it gives me a little more freedom, a little more latitude to work with people and meet them where they are and help them move to a better place. So today I wanted to talk to you about fighting fair. And admittedly, this is an area that I have had problems with, and maybe you know people who've had problems fighting fair too. If you think about it, sports like boxing, football, basketball, all of these sports allow for a certain interaction between people, but at the same time they have rules like no hitting below the belt, no hitting in the head area. There's lots of rules to formalize how they are aggressive against each other. And we all know people who, when they fight, violate all those rules. They say something that hits below the belt. They say something that should have never been said. And that's what I'm trying to develop a technique for what is the best way to fight fair. And I think, excuse me, when you fight, there's a couple different common responses. Some people are very aggressive when they fight. They're in your face. They speak very quickly. They rattle off everything in the past that's been done wrong to them. And then there's other people who, and I kind of fall in this camp, they close down. They don't address the situation. They don't say what they're really feeling because they don't want to make the fight worse, and that way maybe this whole thing will just go away. That they try to draw a shell over them so that they actually aren't in a fight. And of those two extremes, neither one is helpful, because if you're too aggressive, it'll cause a person to shut down. And if you shut down, you never address what the real issue was. So let's try to work out some ways to help when you get in a disagreement, that you are open to finding a resolution. Because isn't that what we want when we fight? We don't want to just fight and yell and nothing happen. We want the situation to improve. So that's where we're going to start. Remember, what we want is that the situation wants to improve. So let's talk about fighting fair. If it's, it needs to be done in any relationship, work relationship, personal relationship, whatever. It means that you want to resolve conflicts constructively and maintaining a healthy relationship. It means that you want to be able to communicate back and forth. And you think, is that really possible? Because I know when I have gotten into fights, sometimes they're just screaming matches, sometimes they're, hopefully they're not getting physical, but you want the situation to become calm. And one of the first thing is you have to stay calm. So you can't control what that other person does, but if you keep control of your emotions, then at least from your side, nothing can escalate. So what do you have to do to control your emotions? Take deep breaths. Count to 10. Do something that will snap your mind out of this. One of the things that when I first went to counseling, the counselor said, wear a necklace, wear a ring, and touch it and make your mind focus on something besides the anger. And just that little, take 3 deep breaths, just that little pause of time can help you get your emotions back under control. And what you want to start doing is listen actively, which means you want to listen to the other person's perspective without interrupting them. Might have been Gandhi who said that we need to stop listening to create a response and start listening to see that person's point of view. And that was a horrible paraphrase of the quote. But so actually listen to the person's point of view. Don't try to formulate, okay, this person said A, I'm going to answer 1, 2, 3. Listen to what the A actually is. Listen to their perspective. Don't interrupt them. Don't jump on them. Allow them to say their piece. When you're talking, use I statements. Instead of saying, you did this to me, say, I felt sad when you did this, or I felt angry when you did this. Do it, explain what you felt during that time. That way you're not putting the blame on them. And that's what these I statements do. I mean, everybody's heard it. Use I, use your feelings. What that does is that prevents you from saying, you did this, you did that. And when you are not accusing a person, they're more open to listening, which gets into the next thing. Avoid personal attacks. So don't say, even though your mind at first wants to say, well, you did this, I'm blaming you, even though it might be in nicer language, don't go for the personal attack. Stick to the issue at hand. If you do that, instead of criticizing the person, you're going to criticize the actions. And I don't even like the word criticize. You can say that you felt bad when this happened, and give an alternative. It would have been easier for me if you had done X. So give concrete examples, because that's when you're all angry and hot in the collar, your mind just goes out to lunch, or at least mine does. So try to not only give an example of how you felt when something happened, but how it would have helped if it might have been worded differently, or might have changed. When you say vague things, that's how people jump to conclusions and think wrong thoughts. And so it's try to be specific as possible. And try to stay on topic. So if this argument was about somebody that didn't think that you were paying enough attention, then don't jump to something they did last week, which is totally unrelated. So don't say, oh, well, I may have hurt you today, but last week you did X, Y, and Z. None of that's helpful. Just stay on the topic of what this discussion is. And let's try not to say, we're not fighting. We're just trying to make a discussion. We're trying to clear the air in a adult fashion. So you might have to reflect back on, if a person said, well, you hurt me when, you may have to rephrase that and said, did you feel X when this happened? Because you need to find out what that person's perspective is. And if you know their perspective, you're standing in their shoes, and it makes it easier to empathize. It makes it easier to understand where they came from. Because that's the whole point of these discussions, is you're trying to understand where they're coming from, and you're trying to make a path forward where you can both be happy. And next thing is, it says take breaks when needed. Well, the Bible says don't let the anger go down. Don't let the sun go down on your anger. Well, that doesn't mean you have to stop fighting. It means you have to stop being angry. So if you can start a conversation and then say, okay, even if we agree to disagree, or I'm tired, I can't think straight, can we talk about this later? All of those are valid, and as long as the anger part is a little dissipated, you're listening to what the Bible said. So when you put off the rest of the fight, it actually gives you time to think on things and come up with questions and try to see where that person's coming from. And the other thing is, a lot of times when you wake up in the morning, your mind is reset. You're not ticked off, you're not ready to kill somebody. You wake up and it's like, oh, well, that wasn't such a big deal as I thought it was. So allow that reset to happen naturally, and it's okay. When you're disagreeing, try to see what you can agree on. So my husband is the exact opposite of me. And they say opposites attract. We are definitely that. So a lot of times if we fight, it seems like we're miles apart. But when you start seeking common ground and start looking for areas of agreement, you find out we're not that far apart. It just seemed like it. It's when your emotions get hot, everything seems blown out of proportion. But when you're seeking common ground, suddenly those differences aren't so great. When you do get into a fight, be ready to apologize and forgive. I went over in a live not too long ago about how to apologize, and it's not I'm sorry if or I'm sorry but. It's I'm sorry I did wrong. Will you forgive me? If you can get those words out, that diffuses a lot. If you say I'm sorry if or I'm sorry but, it makes it appear that you're not really sorry. And you're not. You're sorry that that person is fighting with you, but you're not sorry for the actions. Also, be willing to forgive a person if they come up to you. And forgive doesn't mean forget. Forgive means letting the anger go and being willing to move forward. And sometimes you need to establish boundaries about what's okay to fight about and what's not. If it's something that's, you always say, nobody can talk about your family, no one can talk about your religion, all that kind of thing. That still holds up in fights too. So set your boundaries and don't go past them. As much as it's easy when you're upset to say things that you don't want to, try to put a muzzle on yourself. And that's part of the take 3 breaths, touch a piece of jewelry, do something to slow your mind down. Because it's hard to take something back after you've said it. So start setting boundaries about what you will allow and what you won't allow to happen in an argument. And the last thing is really learn from the experience. Once the conflict's resolved, reflect on what happened and be curious about it. So if this conflict happened, was it because you were both tired? Was it because you were both stressed? Was it a certain time of the day? Was it a certain time of the month? Be curious about what led up to it so that you can make those little changes and address things earlier. Because honestly, when you get into a fight, it means something's been out there for a while and it's been building and building and building, and now it's just going to explode. So if you enter these periods with curiosity and you can see something where you might have done something, apologize quicker. If that other person did something that upset you, go to them immediately. Don't delay. And that's a big part of this is not delaying. Let's address it immediately. And I think that's a skill that a lot of us have to learn, because it's easy to just say, oh, never mind, it'll go away, or my mind reset, I'm good. But no, you need to address things, nip them in the bud, because it's much easier to deal with them when they're little tiny items, little tiny issues. So, what's all this wrap up to? Give a person time to express themselves. Listen to your partner. Don't be afraid of fighting, but try to do it as early as possible. So it's not actually a fight, it's a discussion. And that's really what we're trying to do, is forget the word fight, but let's work on a discussion, something that we can resolve. Be honest. Avoid personal attacks. Don't fight when you're in a rush. Stick to one issue. Don't bring up the other things that have happened in the past. Don't play the blame game. Don't blame each other. Don't blame somebody else. Don't keep score. Learn to compromise. And of course, never use violence. If you can start seeing what led up to the fight, then you can start making those discussions earlier. And that has made a big change, at least for me. And the other thing that has made a huge change is just breathing. Don't say the first thing that came to my mind. Breathe, touch a piece of jewelry, and formulate my response so that it's not a blame, it's not a you did something, it's I feel. And always remember, turn it back on how you feel so that that person can understand. And at the same time, listen if they say they feel, and don't just ignore where they're coming from. You want to be able to say, I understand you feel this way, and it might lead you into a whole different discussion. Like, I never knew you felt that way, or wow, what is it about the situation that you think caused you to feel that way? And start getting curious. And that may be a funny thing, but curiosity is the biggest part of not escalating a fight more than it needs to be. So I hope that gives you some tips on how to fight fair, or how to have a fair discussion. Like I said, my name is Lynn. I do coaching with Combrio Coaching. I can help you work on fighting fair, getting rid of negative thoughts, and working towards being happy and having a purpose in your life. So let me know, excuse me, let me know what you think about fighting fair. Where's the biggest area that you need to improve? And drop me a note in the comments here. Feel free to message me or email me at Lynn, Lynn, at leofarmsinc.com. I hope you have a great week and try to stay out of fights. Talk with you later. Bye.